All right. Hello and welcome everybody to our webinar. My name is Avi Edry. I'm SVP and GM of Marketplace at Verve. And besides overseeing the supply side business at Verve, which is an outcome-driven media platform for advertisers and publishers across emerging channels, I have the pleasure today to be your host and moderator. And I really like the title of today's conversation, Turning Data into Dollars. It's pretty straightforward, and it's exactly what we're here to talk about: how user expectations around data, personalization, and in app experiences are shifting, and how publishers can monetize through ads by understanding what users actually want while maintaining and building trust. Before we jump into the findings, I have some fantastic panelists who are joining us today that I am very excited to hear from. We have Stephanie over from Singular. Stephanie, you want to say a few words to introduce yourself?
Sure. Hi, everybody. I'm Steph, and I'm the CMO at Singular, currently calling in from Berlin. I see everyone saying where they're from. A little bit about Singular. We're the only end-to-end data and measurement platform that uncovers true ROI by unifying all your data across all your marketing initiatives. So we measure every marketing channel and every touch point across any platform that you might be working with.
Amazing. Thanks, Steph. Great to have you with us. I know you'll help us untangle what's hype and what's real in this golden age of measurement. Next, we have Davide from ID5. Davide?
Hello, Davide here, dialing in from Italy today, and I am the VP of Product ID5. For who of you doesn't know ID5, ID5 is an identity resolution company working across all the different channels.
Awesome. Thank you, Davide. Thrilled to have you here. Looking forward to you helping us cut through the noise and talk about what compliance looks like in 2025 and beyond. And last but certainly not least, we have Alex from GeoEdge. Alex.
Hey everyone, and thank you very much for having me. Excited to be here. I'm Alex Rahimovic. Nice to meet you. I'm the general manager of App Harbor, GeoEdge's SDK and in-app product. We're an ad quality tool that gives apps full transparency and control over the ads in their apps. So we allow them to provide their users great ad experience and therefore user experience in a completely automated manner, so they can focus on what they actually want and like to do, and that is to create awesome content without having to worry about this whole annoying ads thing. Fun fact, I live in a town of like 300 people where most people do agriculture and drive tractors, so I'm pretty unusual here.
Awesome. Thanks, Alex. Happy to have you on. And yeah, looking forward to hearing your thoughts on how trust can be built and broken, right, with every single ad impression. So thank you to our fantastic panelists and welcome. And thank you to you, the audience, who I see is dialing in from all over the world, rain and shine, no matter where you are. Thank you for joining us. And just while we're continuing to join and people are dialing in, we have a poll for you all. So just some quick housekeeping items. On the right-hand side of the screen, you'll see three buttons. You'll see the chat, which many of you have found. You'll see a question mark button where you can drop in questions that we will sprinkle in throughout the webinar and cover at the end. And you will see another button there with a little one icon by it for polls. And we have a poll to just kick things off. So we want to hear from you, the audience, what you believe is the biggest challenge to monetizing through ads in 2025, whether that's building user trust, privacy and compliance, personalization, ad quality, or measurement and attribution. And while we're checking in on that poll, we'd like to give you a quick sneak peek into what 4,000 mobile users told us in our latest survey, and some of the answers might surprise you. First up, as you might not come as a surprise, is around privacy intention. People are more worried than ever about their data, but there's a twist. People are still willing to share their data, things like region, gender, and age, as long as it doesn't feel too personal. So they're nervous, but they're not walking away. Next, think of ads as currency. 3 out of 4 consumers say they'd rather watch an ad than pay for content. That's up from 2/3 last year. So in other words, ads are winning and subscriptions are maybe receding. Then there's a geographical divide. In the UK, people are warming up to sharing data, up 3 points year over year. but in the US, it's the opposite. We see a sharp 5-point drop. Same planet, separated by an ocean, totally different trajectories. Here's one that made me sit up a bit: the skepticism amongst the younger generation. Among 16 to 24-year-olds, trust in privacy controls dropped by 13%. That's the group you'd expect to maybe be the most comfortable digitally. They're suddenly saying, I'm not so sure. And that's a red flag for anyone banking on long-term user loyalty. So that's the user side of the story. But what about publishers? Let's have a look at our poll results. Looks like things are fairly split, but ad quality and user experience jumps out the most. So, panelists, given these findings, what stands out the most to you about user expectations, how they're shifting, and what this means for publishers who rely on monetization? Stephanie, let's start with you.
Great. Thanks so much, Abby. Right. So based on what you've just said and based on the data that y'all have put together, it seems that ads are acceptable. I mean, I accept ads. I think all of us accept ads, but the opacity isn't. So 3 in 4 users prefer ads than paying for an app. So it really is a signal that it's okay. We're okay with ads. But we need to make sure that there's trust there. So we need to have a value exchange. So we have to make this very explicit. So I've seen this on a ton of different apps, but it might be, if you watch ads, you'll get access to this. If you share Y, you'll get access to Z. So you really need to spell out that benefit of what a user is consenting to. Also, you want to give reversible control, which I know might sound a bit funny, but you want to be able to separate out that personalization with ads to have a toggle also with how you might be training AI. So you want to separate these two things out. And then you might want to start with, let's call it low data default. So you might want to start with contextual ads versus something that's like highly targeted where there's more opt-in required. And then you want to make sure that everything is very clearly explained. That's my take so far on what you've shared. And I think it is very doable. And I think there's some great examples out there on publishers that are doing this exceptionally well.
Yeah, definitely agree. And I think I'm most impressed we made it 9 minutes without saying AI, because that's
I said it.
definitely a hot topic. So yeah, Steph, you win. Alex, what do you think? What stands out the most to you about user expectations and how they're shifting?
Yeah, to me, 2 things that stand out clearly is firstly that, and I think to many of the participants here, it's a pleasant surprise. Users are very much open to seeing ads as long as they're quality ads in exchange for quality content, which is a good sign. It creates an opportunity, but trust is crucial to them. So in order to win their attention, and they now more sophisticated than ever before, they know that their attention and their time is worth money, and that there's a abundance of quality supply out there for them, good apps to use. So they're basically saying, I'm willing to see ads, but as long as I'm having a good experience. And what it means for publishers is that it creates an amazing opportunity. You have a huge, able and willing and hungry audience. And the second part of the opportunity is that, unfortunately, right now, most apps, and I can say that from personal experience, don't do a great job in keeping this trust. They use all these ad quality or privacy policy things so far more as a box to check out of motivation to comply with regulation, rather than actually keeping their users happy and watching many ads for them to have great ad revenues in a sustainable business. So this creates a rare opportunity to literally stand out and having a competitive advantages just by doing what you're supposed to properly, because most don't. And I think that is an amazing opportunity right now for app publishers that rely on ad monetization. And this panel is a great platform to brainstorm around how to utilize this opportunity and have an amazing 2026.
For sure. It's tough to go deep if you can't nail the basics, right? Davide, bring us home. What do you think?
Well, this is the advantage of being last, right? That you can build upon what everyone else say. From my perspective, the value exchange is really key here. I've seen this trend going on over the year, really, not just in app, also in web and in other channel as well, where users have become more conscious of, I'm exposed to ads, what do I get in return? And it might be free content, right? And TV has been leading the way on this, for example, right? Because, when Netflix started to offer the ad subscription for a lot lower price, they're like, hey, yeah, I can pay less and still get access to the same content, but I'm exposed to ad. At the same time, trust, which has come upon a few times into this conversation now, is also paramount, right? I want to trust that my time is being rightly so valued. That's the first part. The second part is I trust that it's not going to be a creepy experience, and also that the value exchange is adequate. If I am, there used to be a term called ad stuffed back in the days, where pages were like stuffed with ads, and your browser will just collapse. If my app is stuffed with ads, literally one after the other, and I can't enjoy the experience, well, at that point, that is not really a value exchange. It just becomes torture, and I end up not using the app at all. I ended up, just moving on from that. And so recognizing the user in this sense, and what they might be interested about, and respecting their privacy, their preferences, but also their time, is probably going to be a good start based on those insights.
Yeah, I think that's definitely a good point, especially on the user experience, right? That there is a value exchange, but at what point does it tip beyond being an exchange anymore, and just fully falling on the user? But for sure, that's a great segue, I think, into our next topic here, and something that the report showed, which was around this constant theme of transparency and accountability. And that, especially really resonates, especially when you consider the other big shift that we saw, which is that 65% of consumers are now more concerned about their data being used to train AI than 2 years ago, right? So we heard Steph talk about the importance of AI and how this fits into the landscape that we're in. So let me take us a bit deeper into this trust question. What can publishers do, or how can publishers rebuild or reinforce trust in a climate where users are distrusting, where they are skeptical about data sharing? Alex, why don't you start us off?
Sure. So I think this one, again, I don't want to oversimplify things, but it should be pretty straightforward. Users today are very vocal about what they want. And also many times, if we'll be honest with ourselves, we also understand what's a good and a bad experience. Like we may neglect and not dig into even our ad stack, but if we'll play our own app, we'll feel if this is a good experience, if it's a bad experience, if we would want to come back. So to build the trust, honestly, it's as simple as to answer this honestly logical and realistic expectations from the users, and just consistently give them a positive experience, both with how transparent you are, how clear you are about what you're doing, about not doing monkey business, and about consistently also actually giving them a good ad quality. So if I'll try to structure it, as we mentioned before, users saying, I'm willing, I don't want to pay, I'm willing to watch ads to enjoy your cool app, I want you to make money, I just don't want to be surveilled, I don't want to be scammed. So just, come on, don't collect data that you don't need. Be honest and simple and clear about what you collect and why and what you're doing with that, and actually walk the walk and do what you told me you're doing. And then most importantly, just show me good ads. Don't show me ads that I can't close, or throw me out of your app, or try to hack my Facebook account, or steal my credit card number. It's as simple as that. Because even if you'll check all the boxes of compliance and don't collect anything you need, but then you'll serve any type of ad that I just mentioned, users won't be happy. They can leave a 1-star review, they can churn. So if I want to distill it to like two short bottom lines of how to build the trust is one, just don't do things that you wouldn't enjoy as a user. I think most humans can agree on what's a good experience. And B, don't like completely outsource it or use like add privacy and quality is something that you need to handle out of compliance with regulations. Consider it what it is, a real part of your business. There's no more difference between ad experience and user experience. If they'll see, even if you do everything right and just give some block list to an ad network and you never check what happens and you show a terrible ad, the user will blame you. They won't blame the advertiser or the ad network. So you're going to be you're going to make sure that you're trying to give a good experience and be accountable for actually delivering it.
Yeah, definitely. I think we all would agree to try to live by the golden rule when it comes to data collection and ad quality and everything like that. Treat users the way you'd want to be treated. Makes a lot of sense. Davide, what do you think? How can publishers rebuild or reinforce trust in this climate with such user skepticism?
Well, the first thing, and Alex touched upon this briefly, is own it. Don't let someone else own it. Publishers have got a privileged seat, which is the one of being able to communicate directly with the user. And if they don't take charge of it, someone else will. For example, I'm sure everyone here is familiar with Apple, ITP, ATT, all the fun that Apple has brought pretty much in the past 2 to 3 years. They have been doing a very good job constantly to scaremongering users in terms of how publishers use their data. I still remember this ad where you were seeing like every single data the user being stolen in a coffee shop, including the birthday of the grandma or something like that, right? Well, we don't do, at least I hope that we don't do this as an industry, right? Or at least we shouldn't. And going back to, we only collect the data that is useful also to deliver them an experience, and also to, that in many cases, not even personal data. We don't know their birthday. We don't know, what they bought yesterday or what they had for lunch, right? Maybe we do, it depends on the app. But in general, we need to educate the users and be on the front line to tell them, hey, we're collecting the ad to give you the data to give you an experience. This is what we think you would like to receive, and this is how you can also opt out. How you can, not receive these personalized ads and be not just compliant, but in friendly term with our user base.
Excellent, thank you, David. Davide, I want to know what you had for lunch out in Italy. I'm jealous. Whatever it was, I'm sure. Steph, what do you think? How can we reinforce trust in this climate?
Look, I think it's natural that younger users are skeptical of privacy controls. I like to think of all of us in that younger user category, right? I think we're millennials, I hope, all of us. No, I'm just joking. But look, it's not that they're all closing that door on data sharing. I think people are willing to share their data if, again, that value is explicit. I think we might get bored of me saying that, by the way, because I think I'm going to say that a lot, that the value exchange needs to be extremely explicit. And I can think of myself here for times that I have been very willing to share my data. I think apps like Duolingo, it's giving me a better learning experience. I'm in Europe, so I use an app, Zalando, to shop. I'm getting better shopping choices when I'm allowing to share my data. And even finance apps, think you're sharing your face with that app. And what do I get in exchange? I get security. So again, it's not always about showing an ad to somebody to get that data. It's like, what am I getting in exchange for all of this personal data that I'm sharing with these different apps at the end of the day? So I really strongly believe that it's about transparency. And I think all of us have talked about that in one shape or another. So spell out exactly what the user is getting. Be clear what data you're taking or not taking, so and how it is used. And really importantly, and I don't think enough apps do this right, but ask for it later in the value chain. Don't ask for it at the beginning. You can actually do this further down the funnel. You don't have to ask for it right away. You can make that part of this onboarding, and it doesn't have to be day 1. It can be day 10. You know what I mean? Like we sometimes rush to get all this done really quickly, and consent can be, taken away at the beginning, but then you can ask again later on when you've proved the value of your app later down the funnel. So in short, keep the value really in the center of everything. I think we're not talking about apps here that are showing like 1,000 ads and you get frustrated and you uninstall. I think we're really trying to talk here about like those apps, that are like super valuable and giving you this very tailored experience. Because the further you can go there to this tailored approach, to this personalized approach, the better, to be honest. And I think that's the path forward and nothing else.
Yeah, I think you bring up a really interesting point, which I don't hear come up too often, which is about asking later, right? I think so many of us as just consumers of apps are used to installing the app. You get whatever 10 prompts in a row asking for notifications and this permission and that permission. And I think that's a really insightful point about maybe ways to first demonstrate the value or build trust before then asking for some permissions. And you touched on another good point that I want to throw back to the panel just before we move on to the next section, which is what in your view might be one way to demonstrate how the data is being used and how it may be used to enrich or enhance the user experience. I think certainly giving them a taste of the value you have to offer upfront is one way, but what are some other ways? And I'll just open it up to anyone who wants to answer.
I have some examples. One great, I think all of us here, I'm assuming, uses Spotify or something like Spotify. And I think that's a great use case, right? Hey, we're free. And then you actually get ads in the experience. But then what else do you get? What's the value? Well, you get music and you get Discover Weekly, which sometimes is trash and sometimes it's great. So you're getting something in that value exchange. And I think there's tons of examples like this. I think Netflix is another great example where you're getting this like beautiful content laid out for you that they know that you like, and I'm not seeing all the other stuff that I'm not going to like.
Yeah, really good point. Anyone have any other thoughts?
Yeah, I also think that, again, users are human beings just like us, and they're smart people and sophisticated people and reasonable people. And it's also not shameful to tell them that, hey, I need to make a living, and in order for that, I need to show you ads unless you'd like to pay me. And obviously the survey suggests that an increasing number, I think we all feel with the economics of today that this is the trend, that there's some subscription fatigue. People are moving towards ads. So it's not shameful to say that you need that in order to give them this content which they love, and they'll gladly watch the ads for you, and explain what is the data that you actually need for to show them ads that they like, are relevant for them, and allow you to have your livelihood, and explain why you need that data and that data only, and reassure them that that's what you collect and do it. So bottom line, transparency. If you're honest and transparent about the real necessity, I think today's users can relate and very much appreciate and build that very important trust on which we touched in previous questions.
Yeah, and maybe as well lowering entry barrier, right? So very often I find myself the barrier of registering, sharing data by registering and filling out a form or something like that. That's a barrier. Do I want to do that really for every app that I use? No, I don't. It's really too long. Even without thinking about the data sharing, it's an effort, right? So having at the stage approach in value exchange, like I'm giving you little data, I'm getting little value, but I can get more value, right? Even with an explanation. And to get more value, I need to give you more data. And then, if I'm already hooked onto the value and I already think that there is value into what I'm consuming, then at that point, it's more likely that I will go through the effort of syncing my Google account or, just registering and inserting my contact detail, etc., etc.
Yeah, I think all really good points, right? That good examples of value exchange taking place in real life that I think everybody can kind of relate to. And again, to the audience, if you have questions or any thoughts or insights, for the panel, please do drop them in the chat or in the Q&A section, and we'll try and sprinkle those in. All right, let's keep things moving forward and take a look next at the personalization paradox. So personalization and value exchange, good segue, and great perspectives from the panel. And it seems like there's pretty strong consensus that publishers just can't check the compliance box. They really need to show the value, and they need to protect users from bad experiences, both in terms of the content that they consume and the experience within the four walls of the apps, but also what's running within them in the form of ads. And they need to take ownership of building that trust. And if trust is the foundation, then personalization is basically the stress test. And once you've earned enough data, how you use it then makes or breaks the relationship and can either solidify and cement that trust or erode it fully. And so the report shows a real sort of paradox there, which is that younger audiences are actually fairly positive about personalized ads because maybe they have had the experiences, the likes of which Steph has mentioned, where their Netflix feed is better, or they're getting a Discover weekly playlist that's not complete trash, they actually enjoy. But older users are a bit more skeptical. 6 in 10 give negative responses there. Which is fairly interesting. So you had a younger audience that was a bit distrusting, but still wants the personalization, and an older audience who is more negative. So personalization is clearly both wanted and resented. And so the question to the panel is, how should publishers rethink their personalization strategies to deliver value without crossing those trust boundaries? And this time, Davide, let's start with you.
So, I mean, I'm old, so I remember the old days of retargeting, right? You were going onto a website, you were looking for red socks. The next day, it will be literally red socks everywhere. Or, you're looking for a flight, you book the flight, and you're still being shown the same flight that you booked through a week ago. Oh my God, I don't want to see this again. Especially if it's gone down in price. Right, and sometimes you see that it's gone down in price now, and you pay more, so it actually frustrates you even more. I actually opt out when I see this ads, but regardless, that gets a little bit creepy. That's hyper personalization, and it gives this idea of Big Brother. I was, there in my pajama, in bed, maybe just browsing different websites. And surprise, all of a sudden, this moment is following me everywhere. Gentle personalization instead, which is to know, that I'm interested in travel, right? I want to travel in the next few months, and this is what I want to look at. That's a lot more adequate, I would say. And also, when we personalize an ad, we need to think about the user, so the user profile and where it goes and, what its identity is, but also about the context. In which app am I serving the ad? Is it serving a way that the user will be in the right mindset to do this, right? If I am, an example, if I'm playing a game, right, on my phone, and all of a sudden I get in ads about a laptop, I'm probably not in the right mindset there to buy a laptop. If instead, as a publisher, we know that the user is interested into Thai food, it's lunchtime, the user is playing a game, perhaps would like to order some food from a restaurant, that is a lot more of a adequate message, which will be a lot more welcome. It will actually be like, oh, I forgot to eat today. Let me actually, never happened, by the way. Remind me to order this, So we are going from a creepy, ooh, what's going on? What do you know about me? What data did you collect? Do you really know my grandma birthday? Maybe you do. To, oh, okay, this is actually useful information. Thank you very much. It's really what I needed right now. So right moment, right time, right amount of data.
Yeah, I think that's right ad, right time, right place, right? It's like kind of a bit cliche, but it just holds true. For sure, right? You want to get the iced coffee ad when in the US, I know maybe that's a little sacrilege in Europe, but when you're sweating and when it's hot, and not the ad for the hot coffee, right? So all that definitely matters. I want to kick it over to you, Steph. What do you think? How should publishers rethink their personalization strategies without crossing trust boundaries?
Well, I think Davide is spying on me because I was going to say something very similar to him of the story of his flights, because I'm also that old where I remember this like classic story of you've bought shoes and they followed you around the internet. I think we've been talking about that for a decade, which, by the way, I think we all need better suppression lists and dynamic suppression lists so that doesn't happen after somebody has bought something. You shouldn't retarget them. Um, but to be fair, I love personalization. And as a consumer, I love it. So I joke that I wouldn't buy anything if it wasn't for the ads that I was seeing on Instagram because they just know me so well. And I think we just need to be careful, as we've said, on like how creepy do we go with the personalization. I think we've all had those moments where we are near our phone having a conversation, then we open an app and oh my God, why is there that bikini there or that handbag or the things that clearly I'm talking about at the beach with my friends? So we have to be careful on the context. And I think, Davide, you mentioned this idea of segmentation. I think that that's fantastic. The more that we can segment and get more personalized, I think that that's better. I go back to this idea, though, that it needs to feel valuable, right? We want to make sure that it's something that users care about. It can't be like completely out of context. It can't be a total context switch. Games, obviously, it makes sense that you're going to probably show other games and not a couch or a TV or things like that. Though I do think that there are some networks out there that do that. But you want to make sure that it is an ad that's going to work for the user because obviously you want to monetize that user at the end of the day. So the more context, the better. And I think it needs to be how it benefits them. So how will it benefit me, user, to see this ad? I think Amazon does a great job where it's like, hey, you bought this. What about this? So again, that contextual. And again, this is an old story. I think this has been said for like the last decade where we're talking about like, oh, I bought a tent and I forgot pegs, but it told me to buy pegs. And great, now I've got a tent that works. So again, it's this context that works really, really well. And it needs to feel that it's in that moment and that it's right. And I think we'll accept it. I mean, I absolutely don't mind ads if it makes sense for me and it doesn't feel like complete left field why I'm seeing something, or it's not too many. I think we mentioned that as well. There's nothing worse than having no experience whatsoever in an app because you've just been bombarded with ads that now open the app store somewhere. So it really should be focused on user experience, context, and try and be as uncreepy as possible, I would say.
Yeah, that point about the tent and the pegs definitely hits home because, like, in my view, some of the best ads are the ones that don't feel like ads at all, right? Where it does feel like they know you without crossing that creepy line of like, hey, is my microphone hot? Because how could you possibly have known this? Um, on that topic, Alex, what do you think? How can publishers deliver that value again without crossing the trust boundaries?
Yeah, I think that's a very interesting question and important one because I think most people still have flawed logic around this, where they're like trapped in these legacy notions from a decade ago, the time that David and Stephanie described, where you can actually capitalize on this data. Whereas now it's different. You can make as much extra money from the ads from this data before, and users are clearly cringed, as again they clearly state in your survey. So your churn rate will anyway probably offset any like CPM increase that you'll get from this data. And also, yeah, I totally get how we call it a paradox. It does seem like polarizing. I want personalization, but like I don't want to provide too much data. But again, once you really get into the mindset of the user, which we can because everyone are also users, it's not that crazy of a paradox. Sure, I don't want ads that have nothing to do with me. I don't want, me personally, I wouldn't want ads of like women hygiene products or like a retiring house for the elderly because it has nothing to do with me. But yeah, I don't want anything creepy like something that I just search or is my microphone hot. I'll just settle on I'm playing a game, so I'll see similar games, or I'll see a food and beverage ad and I'm a human that consumes food, so it's relevant enough. Like you don't need to go over the top here. And coming back to the point of what this data actually means. Again, it's not, we're not in the Wild West days anymore, in between IDFA deprecation and ATT and Google Privacy Sandbox and the inability, like you need to opt in and you can't track users across apps. There's so much you can get with this personalization. So I think what we rather should do is redefine what's personalization. Personalization is not stalking the user. You're not the CIA. Personalization is making them feel comfortable with the ads they see, basically. So what we really need to do is to adopt the new personalization, which is the data that, again, users clearly say that they're okay with, and they actually want you to tell them how you collect this, and then they'll trust you, which is contextual and behavioral. And with today's technologies that are available, with contextual and behavioral signals, even within the session, you can already add a layer of better fit between user and ad. And secondly, again, be just proactive about the quality of the ads, because it doesn't matter if you'll collect all the data they want and you'll actually handle everything as they say, but again, you'll just serve an ad just straight up gives a bad experience. It tries to scare the user or shows them something that offends them, that will undermine everything else you did. So to conclude, just personalization isn't what it used to be. Just give the users ads that are not completely irrelevant or terrible, and you'll be fine. They'll probably be much happier, and your business will be more sustainable.
Yeah. So just in other words, Alex, the more tractor ads we can show you, the better, right?
Exactly. Please do.
Excellent. Yeah, so let's go to the last sort of insight and topic for conversation as we round out the webinar around personalization. And personalization, again, the recurring theme, right, is it's not about bombarding users with more and more. It's about delivering that relevance and doing so in a way that's tactful and respectful of the users. And I love how everybody has framed it, right? It's about obviously the consent. It's about the context, so it feels more organic and natural, and making very clear the value exchange and the benefits. And again, basic building blocks, but that gives publishers a pretty solid blueprint from which to work off of. But blueprints still don't build a house, right? They're a plan, and you still need tactics. And so when we look at the data, the picture itself is pretty interesting, right? So as overall acceptance of ads is rising, the refusal rates or the acceptance rates can vary wildly depending on the app. So for example, shopping app users get very high opt-in rates, whereas utility apps may not have the same acceptance. And in spite of that, mobile apps are still where users feel the most comfortable and the safest. So given these findings, the big question is, how do publishers turn those principles into action? And specifically, what tactical steps should they take in 2025 to grow revenue through ads while balancing trust, compliance, and innovation? And we'll start with you, Alex. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, I think this is a very important question to actually, hopefully, between all of us, to give some good ideas and inspire folks here with some actionable items to enhance their businesses. So really, our discussion so far makes it pretty easy for me, because I can just kind of run it through my mind and pick up all these actionable items that are the conclusions of all the theoretical concepts that we discussed. I can probably distill it to 3-4 points. So firstly, just consider your user. Consider that they'll have a good user experience. Don't do to them something that you wouldn't enjoy as a user. That's always a great bet to make your app better. Secondly, with that in mind, listen to them, understand what they want, and do that. Thirdly, consider that the ad experience is, again, your brand. It's part of the experience. It's completely holistic. The ads that the users will see during the session and how they feel about them, in their mind, is synonymous with how much they love and enjoy your app, and as far as they're concerned, you're the guy that created the creatives and printed hidden the X button or planted the auto redirect pixel. So you really need to like treat this as a essential pillar of your business and take ownership and accountability around it. And this exactly leads me to my last point. Okay, so now we understand that you need to think about the user, you need to listen to them. The ad part and what users feel and say about the ads is an integral part of your business. It's just as important. So now actually make sure that you have flawless execution, that you have an exceptional execution. Don't, as we said before, don't check boxes. So, okay, there's this regulation. Don't do it to comply with the regulation. Regulation is there because people are having terrible experiences. So make sure you have a good experience. The vendors that you partner with, make sure that they don't just say they comply, they actually comply. And the consent framework, don't trust that it's some plug and play thing. Make sure that it's actually compliant and that also you as a user, like Davide said, some survey or a too complex flow can already be a blocker from users to even start using your app. Make sure that it's good. And of course, from my perspective of the industry being an ad quality tool, so all day long what I do is talk to apps from all over the world and all categories and hear about how much pains they have around user churn and bad store ratings after making an amazing app just because the ads messed up the user experience. Be accountable there as well. Be proactive about checking. Don't assume that if you configured something on dashboards and stuff, it will work as advertised, and wait for to see the user churn in your metrics and the 1-star reviews. As you go, supervise, whether you do it yourself or manually with their automated tool with App Harbor, but just check that you consistently have, that you don't talk the talk with all the language and marketing in EULA, but that you actually walk the walk and you truly deliver a trustworthy experience and a good user experience.
Yeah, I think we can all agree there. Steph, what do you think?
So I think, Alex, you made some amazing points. And really the perspective is not about showing more ads, right? It's smarter ads. And this is when we can start segmenting users on preferences or behavior. And I like what you were saying a lot, Alex, like think of yourself as a user. And, if we put ourselves in the shoes of ourselves, right? And we look at what are the best platforms today that we're on, that we're browsing, that we enjoy the experience, that it feels intuitive, that it feels native where we're getting the ads, that it's like part of that experience, and it doesn't feel like, oh my gosh, what was that? That was super weird, that ad I saw. Or it's like detracting from that experience that you were trying to build as a publisher, first and foremost as well. I think that is really where we need to be playing. Also, having transparency of ads. So there are definitely companies out there that are bad at that. I think, Alex, you've touched on this. Like they think that it's that app's fault showing that ad, but I would almost kind of name and shame gaming ads, because they might show this experience that you're like, oh my gosh, this is amazing. I need to download this right away. And then you get in and it is absolutely 100% not that. So really make the ad similar to what you're getting. And I think shopping apps are guilty of that as well. I certainly won't name and shame any of them, but you could order something and you're like, oh my gosh, that is absolutely not. You thought it was big and it turns out to be a miniature, so this sort of bait and switch feeling that you might get from ads sometimes. So I think it's really important to give your users honesty and almost vet what you're showing them at the end of the day, and have that transparency yourself to know what is being shown to that end user.
Yeah, I think entire memes have been created. I won't name the company out of that miniature experience, and it just underscores the importance of consistency and message. Whether it's a game that's nothing like the ads, and you'll see that in the reviews, like this game is nothing like the ads, or that type of experience. Davide, What do you think? What do you have to build on that?
Well, I am going to go a little bit out of ad quality because I think there is nothing more to add at this point. But I'm going to go more on data collection and privacy and compliance, right? So we already talked previously about, respect user choices, make sure you got this dialogue with the user. Well, also just for a start, be realistic about the data that you collect. No one wants to, see an ad and thinking, how did you get that information? What did you do? How do you know me this way? So I think that making sure that your compliance is up to scratch, that you are not just listing in a privacy policy that is 15 pages long, but also just giving a quick summary, whether it's through your consent management platform in Europe or whether it's through your term and conditioning, in whatever form it is, in a prominent way, say to the user, hey, this is the data I'm collecting, this is how I'm collecting, these are the data that are going to be shared with third party. This way, no, it doesn't necessarily directly affect the ad quality, but it affects how the ad is built from the demand side, which signal they got access to, and therefore helped you make your user base comfortable with whatever you're showing them, right? And yeah, let's be honest, there will be users that opt out. But if you just don't give them an opportunity to opt out, for example, outside of potential legal consequences that you might have, and nice fines that seems to come out like rain this time of the year, you are also at risk of losing your user base or getting bad reviews about your app as well. Like, hey, I tried to exercise my right. I've seen a few apps actually had this problem, and it didn't work. The flow didn't work. So don't beware of this app or don't share data with this app. And yeah, be the good actor and not a bad actor in this.
Yeah, for sure. Okay. In the last few minutes here, I think one thing that is on everyone's mind is that we've covered some strategy, we've covered the findings, and we've covered tactics. But looking ahead, right? If you were to distill this down into one piece of advice for the next 12 months, and in a minute or so, what would you say? What would you say that one piece of advice would be for publishers to stay ahead for, again, trust, personalization, and monetization? And we'll start with you, Steph.
Great. So I've said it already. I'm going to say it again. I'm going to be a broken record. Make that value exchange explicit and think about where you want to put the different pieces of that data puzzle and that consent puzzle in the onboarding. So whether it's during that initial onboarding or post onboarding, as we've said, I think you can collect a little bit at the beginning and collect more at the end. You can allow people to opt out and then ask them again when they really are clearly having a stronger LTV in your app. That's really important. I also think don't forget that younger audiences will share their data as long as they feel value, and they will even accept personalization because they like it, right? We don't know what to buy if we didn't have personalization. I think that could be a mantra. But they need to see that benefit clearly. So stop thinking about terms of compliance and getting that consent and checking a lot of boxes, and think about how you can partner with that user at the end of the day. So show how their data is translating into better discovery. Use creative as a lever to deliver that relevance without having to breach any trust whatsoever. And obviously, where I'm coming from, you need to measure everything so that you can prove that performance of everything that you've done. So
Always.
measure everything, prove performance.
Always. Davide.
Well, from my perspective, it's again, well, unfortunately or fortunately, because it means that we are aligned about the value exchange, right? Don't give your user base for granted. Make sure that they are getting the value or part of the value that you are getting, right, as an app. And also, don't take shortcuts. Don't take shortcuts on privacy. Don't take shortcuts into making assumption about your user when you don't know them too well. So make sure that there is a strong identity base that allow you to deduct something. You don't want to personalize an ad to something that is completely wrong, right? There are way too many bad examples about it. And also just, when, and it might sound a little bit maybe backwards, but when you are unsure, just stop for a second and try to put yourself in the shoes of the user. Don't make a quick decision because you want to be first to market, have a product innovation, etc. Sometimes, if no one else is doing it, there is potentially a reason. Sometimes there isn't. So just take your time to understand your user base, potentially listen to them before moving on with the next big thing.
Yeah, sometimes it doesn't pay to be first, right? Alex, bring us home.
Okay, yeah, I'll try to make a nice conclusion of everything, and it's very difficult to come up with just one piece of advice. But when I try to process through my mind everything I discussed and distill it to one bottom line, for me it would be make user trust and experience your North Star, and then everything else will follow. If you think about the user first, then you won't just check a box to fulfill their expectations around privacy and data. Then you'll consider how their experience goes. Then you'll realize that their ad experience is just an integral part of their overall user experience with your product, and you're accountable for it just as much as everything else. Once you put the user trust and satisfaction first, you'll understand that you need to be accountable for what's going on and enforce and automate and supervise and vet. So I think it all comes down to that. If you truly respect your users, if you don't look at them as like wallets with legs, with feet, but as actual customers that you want to keep happy and create a real relationship with and retain long term for a sustainable business, just really consider what they like. And I want to finish with like a funny anecdote that Steph really made me laugh before talking about these ads that look nothing like the game and people like leaving 1-star reviews. Just in the last week, obviously I need to play a lot of apps and watch a lot of ads. I saw maybe 3 different games already running heavily campaigns where they're saying, hey, we now made a game that actually looks like the ad that everyone likes. Like, we're the one app that's the actual real gameplay. And is so broken that like we did everything so crooked that we ended up having to make a game instead of just listening to the users, understanding what games they like, making an honest ad about that app. So again, it all comes down to users are reasonable, vocal, just listen to them and put them first. Everything else will follow. And maybe one more thing, I want to combine it with the very first, my very first answer, when I said in the next year, and the question talks about next 12 months, you have an amazing opportunity because most and the overwhelming majority of apps, they don't do that. So what's crazy is just by listening to your user and giving them a good user experience, you'll actually stand out. They'll be like, wow, this is crazy. This app is actually honest and trustworthy and puts me first. This is unusual. This is amazing. I'll stick around. So this is an amazing opportunity. Just win by putting user first.
Yeah, novel, right? Just listen to your users.
Yeah, that's insane. Who would have thought?
Awesome. Thank you all. I think those are pretty agreeable points. And definitely things that are recipes for success for next year. Before we wrap up, I want to thank again the audience for joining, and just pick maybe a question here from the crowd before we go, and make sure we answer one, and maybe maybe we can just get some quick hit thoughts on what the panel thinks about app user behavior and how that is changing over time in relation to privacy. Just some quick hit thoughts. Thank you for the question.
I can answer part of it, and maybe some of my colleagues here want to throw in as well. But at Singular, we actually do a quarterly trends report. And this is one of the things that we're measuring is like opt-in, opt-out. And it's pretty steady. It goes up and down, but it's not big. It really isn't big. Let's call it like 15%. So it goes back to what we were saying, where users are like, it's cool, you can track me. It's all about brand trust. So if you're a sketchy app, people are probably not going to trust you. But if you're showing value and you're more of a trusted app, then people are going to opt in because they want a better experience at the end of the day. So we don't see the giant numbers. I think when all of this sort of went down 5 years ago, 4 years ago, people freaked out and thought everyone was going to opt out. Like no one was going to do it. But we don't see big numbers. We really don't at the end of the day. So I think that that's the good news. So the user behavior stays steady, but it's like a couple points up and down here and there, quarter on quarter. And we're at about 15% now, I believe.
Alex, Davide, any different thoughts or opinions or experiences with that?
Not different, but just add on top of that, I think I've said something similar at the very beginning, is that today's users, how they change is, if you want to be cynical, you'd say they're more spoiled and have very high expectations. But with all honesty, they're just more aware of their consumer power, that their time and attention and data is worth money, and they know there are plenty of alternatives there. So they just put up with less problems, honestly. If they're not happy, they'll churn quick, they'll leave a bad review, they'll badmouth you on Reddit, and if they're happy, they'll give you the 5-star review and will stick around and recommend. So I think they're just much more less tolerant to bad stuff and just much faster in response, in feedback, and in its how strong the feedback is, whether it's negative or positive.
Amazing.
Yeah, I think totally agree from my side. I would say the only thing that I've seen over time is when there are external factor, like the famous ad that I was mentioning from Apple that was saying, "Oh, the app know everything about you," etc. There is an immediate response. So overall, I agree with you, Stephanie, that there isn't this massive change, or at least that's what we see. But tactical event or a specific event will cause an immediate response. So if you see a immediate decrease into your overall consent ratio or opt-out rate or increase in opt-out rates, maybe check whether it's a problem with your app or whether someone has said something bad either about your app or the industry or someone else.
Yeah. And I would also add that like when and where you ask is important. Do you know what I mean? Like you should have nice messaging. It should be at a certain time. I think Davide, you mentioned earlier that there's like this crazy doom and gloom when they ask sometimes. Those probably weren't your exact words, but I think it like really matters how you ask, when you ask. It matters a lot. And you could check that. You could A/B test this. You could do it in different ways to see when is the best time and where is the best time. Where is the best place to do this?
For sure. And I think that maybe that last question is a good microcosm of this webinar. So thank you to the audience for that question. We're out of time, so I want to thank everybody who attended. I think today's conversation underscored a few pretty key points: that trust is fragile but crucial, that users want clear value in exchange for their data, that compliance is essential, not optional, and that ad quality and smart personalization fuel loyalty and revenue. So thank you again to our panel, Steph, Davide, Alex, as well as you, the audience, for attending today, and Business of Apps for hosting and for the report. Don't forget, as a live attendee today, you get first access to the in-app user privacy report. Just click that green button that's been flashing for the last hour below to download it. And thank you all again, and see you next time.
Thanks,
Bye-bye.
everybody.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.